At Ritual, we know what goes into the holiday season. The potluck planning, the gift giving, the spreadsheets. So this new year, take a moment for yourself with science-backed support that puts you first. So whether you're focusing on supporting foundational health with a clean vegan multivitamin or supporting your gut health with Symbiotic Plus, do it with 30% off your first month at ritual.com/podcast. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will keep this brief. I would like to offer my sincere apology for the introduction I performed to episode 97 of the Citation Needed podcast about civil rights activist Ida B. Wells. I am not proud of what I did, but I plan to move forward as a better podcaster and a better man. Thank you.
Mr. Bosnick, is it true that you managed to put blackface on your whole cast without their consent?
I did. Yes, my castmates are all heavy sleepers. And so, when opportunity knocks...
Mr. Bosnick, will you be retiring from podcasting?
No, I feel as though that would be the easy way out. Instead, I hope to move forward as a new man with the same job who hopes to be better.
Mr. Bosnick, New York Times, you're in blackface right now.
I am. Yeah, it appears I am.
Is that what that is?
Right now. Wow. I cannot emphasize enough how much I have...
Quit your fucking job, you racist piece of shit!
No. No, thank you.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. This is very serious. I'm Heath, and white guilt is a real problem that affects a disproportionate number of white people every single year. And we're going to talk about why that is, because, again, it's very important. And joining me for this very special episode is a diverse panel of experts. First up, sporting the shades of pointy sheet hat white and cotton entrepreneur white, we have Noah and Cecil.
Oh, come on. In this crowd, I'm borderline Hispanic. I'm for diversity.
It's true. Really. Nothing keeps your whites whiter than new Tide Blood and Soil. Why are they always trying to wash blood and soil out of stuff? You got to ask yourself
what's happening in your life? No, don't answer. Don't answer. And sporting the shades of recessive cum white and phrenology bone white, we have Eli and Tom.
I mean, sure, any sperm can make it first to the egg, but only I made it last.
Phrenology, I will have you know, is making a comeback. Like the measles, so we're all doomed. Yeah. That's pack it in.
Okay, let's get right into it. Eli, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event are we going to be talking about today?
We'll be talking about civil rights crusader Ida Wells. I quit the podcast.
And Cecil, you chose this topic to match the expertise of our oppressed panel. Are you ready to do a bunch of editing later?
Hope the audience likes room tone.
Cecil, who was Ida Wells?
Ida B. Wells, or Ida Bell Wells Barnett, was born into slavery in July of 1862.
So close. Mom, just hold out for a few more years. Come on. We're right there.
It's like getting shot on Armistice Day. It's just, fuck. Really?
Her mother was Lizzie Wells, one of 10 children, born also into slavery and sold off, separating her from her birth family. And her father was James Wells, a half-white, half-black carpenter who was, quote, a hired-out slave living in the town, end quote.
Half white, half black, hired out. This feels indecisive. You got to pick.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Ida's dad was into politics, a Republican during the Reconstruction, and he was a member of the Union League Club. Now, Chicago has a Union League Club, and I've been there a few times, and I thought it was just a weird place that wouldn't let women in without a skirt, heels, and a pat on the ass, but I just found out they were created to promote loyalty to the Union after the Civil War.
Which is also what the Civil War was created to do.
I guess that's
right.
true.
I mean, it feels redundant. Or we'll kill you again seems sufficient, right?
Right.
It's the 50 States Club. We're all in the 50 States Club now.
There you go.
I feel like those clubs had a lot to fight against when Salt the Earth was going on. Is it just me? Is it just me? Like, lesser now. Have we tried or we'll kill you again? It's the first club didn't work.
Well, Ida went to a black school named Rust College.
Rust College. I guess she got waitlisted at Mildew University. How are we naming this thing?
Do you, as the kids call it.
She was one of 8 kids in her family, but soon to be one of 5, as 3 of her siblings and her parents died during a fever epidemic in 1878. Ida was at her grandmother's house at the time and didn't get ill. Not willing to let her siblings go into foster care, she and her grandmother basically took some jobs and took care of them. Her grandmother watching them during the week while Ida worked, and then Ida took care of them on the weekends.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying that the 1800s were better times, but I am saying that if you had too many kids, you could wait a few of them out. That happens. You had that option.
Her career in civil rights starts in 1884 when she was on a train in Tennessee. There she is, minding her own business, sitting in a first-class section of the train, when she's told to give up her seat to a white person and go to the smoking car, or as Trump would say, the smocking car. She, of course, refused. 2 men, it doesn't say whether they work for the railroad, dragged her out of the car.
She's just like, guys, it's 1884. This is embarrassing. What the fuck? Just like, tell you what, try again in 1955. It won't go great, but you could try it then.
Dragged her out of the car. I didn't even know United had train service. That's old. Wow.
It's an earlier time.
Now, at this time, kicking someone out of a clearly white seat was an interesting legal question. There was a law called the Civil Rights Act of 1875 that was supposed to, quote, protect all citizens in their civil and legal rights, giving them equal treatment in public accommodations and public transportation, end quote. But the Supreme Court had already ruled against this in the previous year.
Good. Yeah, no, originalism, that's important. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, you know who gets that joke? Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland gets that joke.
Yeah. Oh, you know who doesn't? People who just couldn't with the stamps in the post office.
Idiots.
So Wells, who was also making a partial living as a journalist, not only wrote about it, but also decided to sue the railroad. Her first lawyer was paid off by the railroad and wasn't much help at all. So she decided to hire another attorney and won a $500 settlement, which would be about $2,500 in today's currency. The railroad appealed and won, and she was ordered to pay the court costs. The conclusion of the court was that she was in it for the money and not for the comfy seat. She wrote about the decision, quote, I felt so disappointed because I had hoped such great things from my suit for my people. Oh God, is there no justice in this land for us? End quote.
Yeah, you got to be patient, lady. So, I mean, we said 1955 earlier. That, admittedly, naive. Give us till 2020. We got this.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, all right, Heath. But, you know, look, there were very fine people on both sides of her as they dragged her out.
That's nice.
No. During this time, she worked as both an elementary school teacher and an editorial writer for the Evening Star in Washington, D.C. under the pen name Lola. She also became a co-owner and editor for the Speech and Headlight, which was a black-owned newspaper in Memphis. She would have her job as a school teacher for a few years before getting dismissed, quote, due to her articles that criticize conditions in the black schools of the region, end quote.
They're like, hey, lady, we're still just doing separate at this point. I mean, we're not even going to disingenuously add Bud Equal for another decade. You're way ahead of your time.
How does it even work? It's like, look, we know the conditions are bad, but we don't need you telling the other black people? Like they knew. What's the controversy?
Now, in order to describe her start in investigative journalism on lynching in the South, I have to give a little backstory. It takes place in Memphis in 1892. There's 2 grocery stores in a neighborhood nicknamed The Curve.
The bell curve.
One of these stores is white owned by a William Barrett, and the other is black owned by Thomas Moss. They're right across the street from one another.
Yeah, the white store's got a blacks only entrance, just turns into a hallway that goes back across the street to the other one.
Fun fact, Valdosta, Georgia has Walmarts like that. I mean, they're not like exactly across the street from each other, but they're close enough that it's obvious.
Yeah, additional fun fact, Chicago has a west and a south that are like that. So
Kidding.
Whole compass points.
On March 2nd, 2 little kids are playing marbles outside the black-owned store. One of these kids is white, Hurst is his surname, and the other is black, Harris is his last name. Well, they get into a fist fight. Harris starts getting the better of Hurst, so Hurst's dad intervenes and starts beating the hell out of the black kid. Well, 2 employees come out of the black establishment to help Harris. They're both black. Then this causes the people nearby to, quote, gather in what quickly became a racially charged mob, end quote.
Or in me and Heath's hometown, what's known as a Little League game. Little League.
The next day, the white grocery store owner came to the black store with a deputy. He was looking for one of the employees that helped break up the fight the previous day. Well, that guy took a vacation day and wasn't around. So at one point, the white store owner says, quote, blacks are thieves, end quote, and smacks the black employee that didn't take the day off upside the head with a pistol.
Jesus.
Well, they get into a wrestling match over the gun. The white guy loses the match and the gun and also has to dodge a bullet because he doesn't have that gun anymore.
He loses the gun, just like, all right, I'll stop if you stop. We tie. We tie. See?
Yeah.
It's done.
There's Trump's flag right there. A white racist who just lost his gun calling timeout. There you have it. They can all make it their Twitter profile picture.
there's seriously a recurring theme with all of this shit where like the white guy keeps getting their ass kicked in an already unfair fight. Like, maybe stop doing that. This is not your thing.
Right?
So the white team comes back 2 days later with more people, 6 dudes, including a sheriff deputy, and they're shot at again. So they decide to deputize, as the article says, quote, hundreds of whites to put down what was perceived by the local Memphis newspapers as an armed rebellion by black men in Memphis, end quote. So they arrested the 2 employees of the black grocery store and the owner.
Just like, all right, Civil War second half goes to the South. That's 1-1 on the scoreboard. So overtime, I guess.
Fun fact, Bill Belichick is on our side this time, too.
Tom Brady definitely is. Tom Brady is. Well, and to be fair here about the 100 deputized white guys, with the guns that they had back then, it took a lot of white people if you wanted to fire 50 bullets into a car full of unarmed dudes.
Oh, fucking shit. Jesus Christ.
I like that the deputizing is really what makes it legitimate. Like if they hadn't done that, it would just have been an unruly mob, you know? Like I'm just imagining the confusion on these guys' faces. Like, oh, this used to be easier when they had to let us kick their asses. This isn't working out.
So 4 days later, in the middle of the night, 75 men wearing black masks took these 3 from jail, marched them 1 mile away from the city, and shot them all. The grocery store owner, Thomas Moss, was recorded as saying, quote, tell my people to go west. There is no justice here, end quote.
Meanwhile, on the West Coast, Nathan Phillips' great-grandpa's like, I got bad news for you, dude.
You're right.
Like, I just want to know, like, how fucking brave do you feel in that moment when you're like, only pleased with 25-1 odds. Like, yeah, let's kick his ass. 23, 24, 25. All right, yeah, let's kick his ass. Ugh.
Yeah, and he's chained up in a jail, right? And unarmed, yeah.
Ida Wells reported on this in the newspaper. She said, quote, there is, therefore, only one thing left to do. Save our money and leave town, which will neither protect our lives and property nor give us a fair trial in the courts, but takes us out and murders us in cold blood when accused by white persons, end quote.
Yeah, that could literally be part of a news story in Tempe, Arizona from 2019. Yeah. And there's not much more room to go west from there either. Maybe there's justice in the Pacific Ocean somewhere. I don't know. Maybe head back east again. Virginia? No, not Virginia. Okay, everybody brainstorm, and we'll take a quick break for some apropos of nothing.
There he is.
There's our new favorite client, Liam Neeson. So, how'd that press screening go?
Fantastic, boys. Really got some good buzz going. I even told that very, very important story about when my friend was raped.
Friend was raped?
Yes.
Liam, seriously? You're not talking about that story when you hunted black people for a week? Is that what you're describing right now?
Indeed, but don't worry. I explained what a shameful, horrible thing I did.
To a reporter?
Yes, because vengeance is wrong.
Right, so wait, sorry, did you say vengeance is wrong? That's
I did.
The thing you thought was wrong?
I did, and it is, and I regret my actions.
But you also mentioned what you did was racist, right? You apologized also for the racism.
I see the confusion,
Okay,
boys. You
good.
see, boys, the rapist was black. The rapist was black.
Stop saying that. Don't say that again.
I'm sorry, can I get anything for you guys?
Whiskey?
Yeah, just bring the bottle.
The
Can you just
case?
bring
The case?
Bottle? Case?
You had a honey lemon tea a couple weeks ago. Could I have some of that?
Yeah, sure. I'll be right back.
Okay, Liam, we need to get you somewhere where you can apologize, like, right away and acknowledge that you regret looking to commit a hate crime. Did you get that?
Boys, you don't understand. It was 40 years ago. It was legal to hunt a black man in those days.
No, it wasn't.
You
No.
sure?
No, it was not.
Positive.
And we really need you to understand that before we put you, like, on, like, another press conference
Here's your tea, Mr. Neeson.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
on television, before we put you on television.
I hit a woman in the face in the 80s with a teapot. That reminds me.
Jesus fuck.
Liam, come on, man. Don't
But
say new things.
I realize now you mustn't break teapots.
Nope, not the lesson
not-
there, buddy. Nope.
That's not the lesson. That's not the
Valuable.
lesson, Liam.
Do you know how to moonwalk? And we're back. When we left off, black people were looking into finding justice in Atlantis, I think. Wet but equal. This is fun. What's next, C-Train? Fun topic.
All right. I actually knew Thomas Moss, the owner of the grocery that was killed. And so this motivated her to start a series of interviews about lynchings in Mississippi. She must have had a few centuries to kill.
Well, I mean, she was waiting for equal rights.
Yeah.
So
There is a notable mention in the Wikipedia entry on one of the lynchings. Quote, in Tunica, Mississippi, in 1892, where she concluded that the father of a young white woman had implored a lynch mob to kill a black man she was sleeping with to save the reputation of his daughter, end quote. Who says you can't have honor killings in America, guys?
Yeah. Well, it depends on how you interpret RFRA, honestly. Sincerely held lynchings are still being debated.
Not even untrue.
Seriously, last
no,
month,
yeah.
we debated that last month in reality. In real reality, 2018, 2019.
Grown-ups said that with their eyes and their faces.
Things came to a head in 1892 when Wells wrote an editorial and said, quote, that old threadbare lie that Negro men rape white women.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. It's consensual and the white women love it. That's crazy.
Continuing, if Southern men are not careful, a conclusion might be reached, which will be very damaging to the moral reputation of their women, end quote. As a counterpoint, someone burned her office to the ground.
Jesus. folds up a piece of paper, slides it across the table to Ida Wells, just says, "Your building is on fire," is my counterpoint.
Okay, yeah, but what do I get for my trade-in? That's
I don't know what's worse, the story or the fact that you could add 100 years to it and I'd believe you.
Yeah. So she took the research and wrote a pamphlet called Southern Horrors, Lynch Law, and All Its Phases. Her conclusion, after a great deal of research, was that lynchings that had to do with the rape of white women were actually used as an excuse to stifle, quote, black economic progress, which threatened white Southerners with competition and white ideas of enforcing black second-class status in the society, end quote. She advocated fighting against people who tried to lynch with armed retaliation.
So much for the tolerant left. Am I right? Give me money.
But honestly, imagine how many white people read that and then unironically said that defending your life was going too far.
Yeah, right. Like
No.
that whole thing. I'm right there. It's fucking insane that there's even a discussion to be had where fighting against being lynched wasn't an accepted norm. Like the incredible part, like imagine if there was white people being lynched. I guarantee they wouldn't sit around writing fucking pamphlets about whether they were going to defend themselves.
Yeah, no shit. This was a time in the South, too, when government went out of its way to disenfranchise blacks. That time is still happening, by the way. I have no idea why I thought I should differentiate, but I did. In any case, they were instituting poll taxes.
Which were, if you think about it, preferable to what Brian Kemp did. We could have bought our way out of poll taxes.
And about poll taxes, an interesting side note, the grandfather clause is when they wanted to discriminate against really fucking poor black people, but not really fucking poor white people. So they exempted from the tax any adult male whose father or grandfather had voted.
Okay, no lynching unless your dad had an active lynching account with the state. Just silver level or better, to be fair. We don't want to be crazy.
They also had literacy tests, but I have no idea how anyone in the South passed those. So
No, the white people only had to know the letter K.
She did more research and released a 100-page pamphlet called The Red Record in 1895.
Excuse me, I thought you said a 100-page pamphlet.
Yeah.
100 pages.
I know, they call it a
pamphlet.
I don't know why. Whip. The work covered in detail lynching in the United States since the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. See, before the Civil War, lynching was bad business because blacks were property. But after the Civil War, well, things changed pretty dramatically in the South. Suddenly, the whites were outnumbered. So if you were accused of a serious crime and you were black, you were probably going to have a bad day. She said in the book, quote, 10,000 Negroes have been killed in cold blood through lynching without the formality of judicial trial and legal execution, end quote.
Okay, but that's 6,000 lynchings in 19th century Negroes. You got to do the conversion to be fair. Let's just be accurate about everything we say.
It's a weird place for a beep.
Like when you were safer, when you were a forced labor commodity, like that, you have fucked up your society. That is
Oh,
not.
shit, man. She explored the reasons why whites would do this and what excuses they gave. The first is that since the white people were outnumbered, they used violence and lynching to keep the black populace in check. The next is to squash any political activity by black people in the South. And the last was the myth that black men lusted after and rape white women, and that any relationship between people in these demographics was a rape. What it boiled down to is that any tiny step in the direction of equality, the white Southerners would take as a direct threat to their own power. So they would lash out.
Maybe I'm showing my wokeness here, but has anyone ever really been curious as to why these lynchings were happening? Who was like, whatever could it be?
I don't think that's your wokeness showing, Eli. I feel like asking why racist violence happens is one of them super important questions. Like maybe top 10.
I don't know, because I'm wondering who the audience is. It was like they're like a bunch of black people holding this enormous pamphlet, just like, well, I don't know, maybe if there's a good reason in here.
Tom gets it.
We're the
Tom
audience.
gets it. Tom gets it.
I'm going to get to it here now. So the real audience was Northerners. They really didn't have a grasp on how bad it was in the South for black people. And these two books on lynching really exposed what was happening. Another thing that Northerners were appalled by was how often the people around the lynching knew who committed the crime, and there were even photographs taken with the perpetrators in the shot, and they would not be charged for the crime.
Yeah, no, that wasn't a lynching, Your Honor. They were all planking. You got to know your meme here. That's not what it looks like.
Again, even then, the left couldn't meme.
Ida used another tactic. She basically told mom on us. She traveled to Great Britain and went on a speaking tour in 1893 and 94. She had hoped that the tours would help create sanctions for this kind of atrocity and shame the U.S. into doing the right thing. The right thing here, just to be clear, is not to kill someone because they're brown.
Yeah, and yet she was trying Plan L at this point.
That's true.
She toured the UK for 2 months, and thousands of people came to watch her speak.
Yeah, this seems like this should have been a very short speech, but like if the pamphlet was 100 pages, I can't imagine the PowerPoint.
She did get a lot of press coverage in the U.S. for this, and not all of it was favorable. The failing New York Times called her, quote, a slanderous and nasty-minded mulattress, end quote.
Oh, Jesus.
Whoa. Now you got to go to the opinion page of the New York Times for that kind of racism. Got to flip.
But even the negative press was bringing much needed attention to the subject, which gained her a lot of supporters in the U.S. and abroad.
Extra, white people are way better at lynching. Look at this bell curve.
Yeah, even then, there was no such thing as bad publicity. Unless you were fucking a white lady, I guess.
Or Jeff Bezos, but same thing.
So we'll find out.
Wells was also part of a boycott of the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. The World's Fair had chosen to exclude African American exhibits. I guess that's why they call it the White City. So Wells, along with several other notable black public figures, including Frederick Douglass, wrote a pamphlet called The Reason Why the Colored American is Not in the World Columbian Exposition, which included a portion on lynchings in the United States. They worked to get the pamphlet distributed at the fair to more than 20,000 people. She was also involved in the creation of women's clubs, quote, most of which had started out as social and literary gatherings and eventually became a source of reform for various issues in the United States. Both African American and white women's clubs were involved with issues surrounding education, temperance, child labor, juvenile justice, legal reform, environmental protection, library creation, and more, end quote.
Yeah, okay. Serious question. What if women are in charge of everything forever? Just, balance it back out. That feels like a good move.
Don't buy it. He's egalitarianism here is just for him to get out of work. It's just.
Also, I mean, I'm for it, but the rate of lost phones would go up 800%, Heath.
I would have the same number of phones.
It's a zero-sum game.
Constantly.
These clubs were fighting for women's suffrage, but for Wells, the plight of black people in the United States was something she could not politically let fall to the wayside. She wanted women to vote so they could help elect black leaders, and that in turn would help with the enfranchisement of blacks. And as you can imagine, this didn't go over well with white suffragists.
Okay, what if black women are in charge of everything forever? Wait, slight change.
No, just
what I said before.
Whatever the opposite of white men is.
Yep,
right? Like that feels like the opposite, and we've seen what we do with the place, so it seems right.
True, man.
Strategically.
Black non-binary? I'm fine with that too.
Whatever.
So she and several other black women, including Harriet Tubman, founded the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs in 1896. She'd be part of the group that went on to create the NAACP 15 years later, but she would not be listed as one of the founding members, either because of her choice or drama, and the wiki really isn't that clear about it. Wells died in 1931, and she left behind an amazing legacy. She had a postage stamp, scholarships in her name. She's constantly listed as one of the greatest African-American leaders in our history. And a few days ago, Chicago renamed Congress Parkway to Ida B. Wells Drive, prompting a bunch of people to ask, where are all the white streets? We should remember her because she played a huge role in both the women's movement and in empowering African Americans in our country.
Okay. And if you had to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, what would it be?
I'm just happy no one said anything obscenely racist.
Wow. So you
Post edit.
credited
Post.
all of Tom.
Post edit, it's amazing. Post edit, it's amazing.
All right. Are you ready for the quiz?
Abso-friggin-lutely.
Cecil, this essay comes just in time for Black History Month, which we definitely don't need because everything is fine now. Except, A, we're literally rehashing conversations about voter ID laws right now.
Yeah.
B, segregation isn't legal. It's only social and financial and geographically acceptable.
Yeah. Right.
C, we're still deciding if black people drugs count more than white people drugs. And instead of the answer being 100 to 1 yes, now it's 18 to 1 yes.
Progress.
Right.
Or D, seriously, just turn on the news, literally any station right now and now, because we've had the same now for 200 years.
And it's a minstrel show.
It's the president doing a minstrel show.
And it's the other channels too. Look at that. It's every channel. I'm flipping through.
It's a sympathy piece about the minstrel show from us. I'm confused.
I realize that you're trying to pull me off here with D. I think you want me to choose D, but I'm going to go with C. It's also all the rest, but especially C. It's 18 to 1 on the drug sentencing, and it's 1 to 12 on history months. So,
All right. Well, Cecil, the question on everyone's lips is, why did you set up your 4 fellow white guys for 40 minutes of lynching jokes? Is it A, you want that sweet, sweet Northam retirement package? B, you'd like $70 million from NBC? Or C, never mind, I get it now, question withdrawn.
secret answer D, doesn't matter. You somehow made a story about civil rights activists and centuries of unpunished lynching about you, Eli.
It's because of his
I'm still
wokeness.
here, Cecil. I mean, many would argue I'm the only one here. So,
All right, so I got a good one for you. Cecil, if you'd have asked me before tonight who Ida B. Wells was, I would have A, regretted my lack of accessible smoke bombs. B, assumed she was a late series Garbage Pail Kid from when they ran out of puns that worked. C, demonstrated how Caucasian could be a verb, as in just Caucasian my way through life. Or D, blamed the schools.
I'm going to go with secret answer E. You would have thought she was married to rice mogul Uncle Ben.
Oh, I can see why you would have thought that, Cecil, but no, it actually was A. Mostly because anytime I don't have smoke bombs at the ready, I start to
You always
feel
want more
naked.
smoke bombs. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
All right, good work, Noah. You stumped him. You are the winner.
All right. Well, Cecil wrote this whole essay in human sentences, and let's not get spoiled here. I'm more of a fan of painting a scene with the grammatical equivalent of cave art. So Eli can read the essay next week.
woo, Arab-Israeli conflict. Looking forward to it.
All about the Benjamins.
All right. Well, for Tom, Cecil, Noah, and Eli, I'm Heath. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Eli will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear Tom and Cecil on Cognitive Dissonance, and you can hear Eli, Noah, and myself on God Awful Movies, The Scathing Atheist, and The Skeptocrat. And if you thought our show had a value above zero, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod. And if you're thinking it's a value of less than zero, you can send us a bill at 1 Go Fuck Yourself Street, Chicago, go fuck yourself. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, listen to past episodes.
Oh, there is a white street in Chicago. Nice.
Connect with us on social media, or take a look at the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
Okay. I apologize sincerely that the rapist was black.
Nope. We're going to try one more time.
I don't know, man. It's 4 a.m.
We've done this so many times.
More tea.
I'm a black rapist.